Hello everyone, got another Prager University video here. This particular one I have not pre-watched, so I don't really know much about this situation regarding Google, but as we go through, I'll let you know what my opinions are. Let's begin.
I used to be a senior software engineer at Google, until they fired me, for doing something unforgivable. Something so controversial that it was the #1 news story for days. My crime? I wrote an internal document that, among other things, suggested that men and women, on average, are different. Like I told you, unforgivable. The politically progressive viewpoint, which is dominant at Google and in the media, is that all disparities in society are due to injustices, or in this case, that the gender gap in tech is solely due to some form of sexism.
Alright, I gotta stop it right there. First of all, Google is a private company. It's a private business. If you work for a private company like Google, you are not entitled to the First Amendment protections that is afforded to you by the government. In fact, the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution regarding free speech only protects you from the government. It does not protect you from economic consequences from a corporation, or in this guy's case, his former employer. Let's continue.
But is this true? The politically correct answer is yes, and Google acts accordingly. It treats men and women differently during hiring and promotion, holds official women-only events, and gives mandatory sensitivity training on how to combat alleged sexist bias. Of course, all of this makes sense if sexism is indeed the sole cause of the imbalance. But what if men and women are not exactly the same? Then sexism is just one of many possible causes of the imbalance. And exclusionary programs and differential treatment can be a counterproductive form of sexism. These practices actually increase tensions and make some feel like Google cares more about their gender than their programming ability.
Look, I'm not familiar with Google's hiring practices, but they are a big company, they are a successful company, and I don't think they got into where they've gotten to right now by just hiring people simply to fill a gender quota. You see this often with the right wing. They try to go after fair hiring practices, things like affirmative action, for example. With regard to affirmative action, it doesn't specifically say, hey, you must hire a female or you must hire a black person, for example, simply just because you have a shortage of this gender or this race in your workplace. It doesn't say that. What the law says, and it's very clear if you read it, what it says is, if all things are equal, you are to consider that person's race as a deciding factor. And that was done namely to correct historical injustices. What all things being equal means, for example, if two applicants have the same qualifications, right? They both have a college degree, they both have the exact same GPA, everything is the same, everything is equal, race or gender is the deciding factor. And you mainly see this in the area of government employment, the public sector. You rarely see stuff like that in the private sector. But let's continue.
As an engineer, when I'm faced with a problem, I want to solve it. So I decided to research the premise that men and women are exactly the same. I wrote my findings in a 10-page document titled Google's Ideological Echo Chamber. You can read it online. What did I discover? That not all of the male-female disparity in tech may be the result of sexism. That at least some of it may be attributed to men and women having different goals for their careers and their lives. To cite just 2 examples, in the study Women, Careers, and Work-Life Preferences, published in the British Journal of Guidance and Counseling, the study's authors conclude that women, across populations, tend to look for more work-life balance, while men tend to have a higher drive for status. And according to a study by Cal State Fullerton psychologist Richard Lippa, men, on average, tend to be more interested in things while women tend to be more interested in people. These findings have been replicated many times. They've actually been cited by other researchers as a cause for the gender gap in tech. In other words, I didn't make this stuff up. In fact, after my document came under attack, evolutionary psychologist Jeffrey Miller said its empirical claims were scientifically accurate. But Google disagreed. Like, really disagreed. First, the company's newly appointed VP of Diversity, Integrity, and Governance, Danielle Brown, posted a memo that said my report advanced incorrect assumptions about gender. Google CEO Sundar Pichai sent a memo to all employees saying that I crossed the line by advancing harmful gender stereotypes. This was, he added, not okay. Then he fired me. By that point, much to my shock, my document had gone viral. News outlets were branding it an anti-diversity manifesto.
Well, first of all, like I said earlier, Google is a private company. You are not entitled to work for them, and they are not required by law to hire you, and they can fire you as they want. Last I checked, Google is an at-will workplace, and if you don't have a contract, they can essentially fire you for whatever reason. Or if you do have a contract, within the contract there are very specific guidelines that state when they can fire you. In this case, they had grounds to fire this guy, and really, quite honestly, he's just butthurt that he got fired, and he really has no one else to blame but himself.
But if they had read what I wrote, they could see for themselves that it was pro-diversity. I had suggested multiple ways that we could get more women into tech without resorting to counterproductive discrimination. Ironic, isn't it? The company that hires some of the smartest people in the world couldn't handle a well-reasoned scientific discussion. But my firing pales in comparison to the larger issue. Will Google force upon its users the same politically correct views that it forces upon its employees? The evidence is disturbing. Google already manipulates its products to fit a certain viewpoint. Just one example, YouTube, Google's video platform, restricts access to dozens of Prager videos, along with videos made by other influential moderates and conservatives. Yes, Google is a business and can set its own policies, but for its billions of users, Google is their main gateway to information, the lens through which they view the world. This makes Google, in some ways, more powerful than even the government. And that means Google has a special responsibility to, well, simply follow its own motto, don't be evil.
You know, it's interesting. He kind of takes almost a liberal position here. He said that Google has become so large and powerful that they essentially play a role in everyone's lives, and hence he just implied that they must be regulated. You know, it's interesting. You know, this is very typical of the right wing. Well, when they feel something personally, when an injury or a calamity impacts them personally, then they want you to have all the empathy in the world for them, and almost overnight they turn into liberals. You know, it's an amazing transformation process, really.
I'm James Damore for Prager University.
Yeah, this guy's an idiot. Google hired you to create a product. They did not hire you for your ideas, and they could care less about your ideas. They hired you to do technical work. Instead, you did not do technical work, and you instead decided to write a paper criticizing them, and hence they fired you. You know, and like I said, Google has every right to fire you, and they have every right to hire whomever they want. You know, but you know, this is a typical Prager University crap. It's always I'm the victim, so to speak. Anywho, if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, do all that. I'll see you guys next time.